Hey everyone, welcome into Gridiron Sunday Night Live. That's right, it's Sunday night. We're live after week one of the NFL season. Not over yet, still two more games to go. Delighted to be joined by Ollie Connolly. Ollie, good to see you again, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Where's your energy, man? This is week one of the season. It was an absolutely chaotic day. We had tons of missed field goals. We had a tie in week one. We had final drives. We had winning on a 2 point play rather than kicking an extra point to tie. It was a chaotic early afternoon and evening slate.
The really funny thing was, and we'll get into this in a minute, the first like 30 to 45 minutes of the NFL Sunday was really like, it wasn't quiet, but in reality, in terms of different Sundays, it was a bit quiet, and then it just exploded, man. I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
There you go.
it was crazy, really. And I know we're going to dig through the games. I think we should just kind of lay out to the people the point of this show. Some people will be listening to this in podcast form. We're going out live across all of the Gridiron social channels. If you do indeed stay up in the UK or wherever you're listening around the world for Sunday Night Football every week, Michael and myself, or a rotating cast of Gridiron hosts, are going to jump on in this time slot to kind of quickly recap some of the most interesting storylines from the day. Then on Monday, there'll be more of a deeper dive into certain topics. We're gonna hit on like one or two of the biggest topics, but it's funny because we were texting just before, right? What should we talk about? Because the whole idea for us was let's get on, we'll chill, we'll have a bit. It won't be as in depth as we usually, do analysis and stuff at Gridiron. We'll just chill and say, wow, wasn't it crazy when Carson Wentz did that mad shit thing he did? And as you just go down the slate one by one, like, I'm sat there at 7 o'clock going, man, the Dolphins pasting the Patriots is going to be a big storyline. And it's probably ninth on the slate now. Patrick Mahomes torched the earth in Arizona, right? I've had all these people from Arizona, Michael, as I'm sure you're aware, for 6 months now coming after me because I've done nothing but criminalize the Cardinals defense because I understand how flawed that thing is. Understand that Vance Joseph, a guy I really admire, is going to get lobbed under the bus at the first possible sign by the brain trust, quote unquote, over there in Arizona, and they just get demolished by Patrick Mahomes and the New York Chiefs offense, and that's probably like what, fifth, sixth on any potential running order. I mean, where is the kind of number one story that you immediately jump to?
Oh, it's that Chargers Raiders game. I loved it. That was just after 7 months, and I'm not counting the preseason. I loved it. Before we get into it, man, you're talking about beer. I
Mhm.
ask everyone listening to this or watching this now, how does a free case of beer sound? As you can see, top of the screen, if you are watching this, our pals at Beer 52 are offering you a free case of 8 beers. Simply go to beer52.com/gridiron, and all you have to do is cover the postage cost of $5.95 to claim your free case now. Beer 52 is the biggest beer club in the world, and each month they send their members a case of beer from a different part of the world. There's even an Irish case, Ollie, which I know you're going to get from me
Yeah.
next week. But tell me your beer. What beer have you got?
Oh, what I have today, should I show this to the camera? Would that be professional? I have this kind of cool, funky stripe looking thing, and it is a Solar Flare Session IPA brewed with papaya, pink guava, and mango. I believe it's from Denmark. I don't know if I've ever had a Danish beer. I'm going to make myself sound dumb now. Is Carlsberg from Denmark? Is that from Denmark?
I've never been to Copenhagen, but I'm nearly certain it's Danish. Yes.
Yeah, so I've had the classics of Denmark. I've not had kind of the off the beaten track, interesting, cool ones. I will now give this a try on podcast. Great podcasting when I drink my beer. Yeah, that's good. That's my review. That's very, very good.
I've got a Hazy Day Hero Hazy Session IPA. I've got a fun fact for you. I have
Mm,
never really had IPAs apart from
yeah.
when I go on my travels to certain IPA bars in Manchester, for example. So this could be anything for me. Let's see.
And I will say I only drink lager unless I'm having like a gin on a mad hot day. But I only drink lager. So when these rocked up, I was like everyone, a bit like, let's find out what all the noise is about with these things, and they are legit good. It's like it embarrassed me how I was like, yeah, I don't do that stuff. I just go for lager, and now I've had this, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I drink now. This is pretty good.
beer52.com/gridiron. If you are listening to this on a Monday morning on your commute to work, or if you're waking up after watching Sunday Night Football, check it out. You get your free first case with that link, and it's $5.95. Just cover the postage, and it should get to you in a few days. But I definitely recommend it. There's snacks as well. Talking about snacks, I'm just going to jump into this game first, right? I mean, if you want to go to this next one after, but the Pittsburgh Steelers defense snacked on Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals today. In the first half, Ollie, Joe Burrow he's the second quarterback in the last 20 years to turn the ball over 4 times in the first half of the season. So the last person to do it, do you know who it was?
In the first half of a season, 4 times.
The first half, I think it was the first half of the game in the season, but turn the ball over 4 times in the first half. Like that is
Mark Sanchez.
Josh Allen in 2019 against the Jets. So he shouldn't be too concerned. But that game at Everton, it really, really did. And that Steelers defense, Ollie, just looks unbelievable, man.
Yeah, they always have done. You know, we talked about this in the betting pod, I think in a preview show on Wednesday too, that we're in this situation with the Bengals offense where they were going to have to kind of redefine themselves over the course of this season. And I always thought it would take them some time. I didn't think they would necessarily find their voice in week 1 of the season. That staff just isn't built that way. And we can run through some of the decisions. It means to me, the most criminal part of this, far from the offense, which I think we should discuss a little bit and get back into, but I have to start with some of the Zack Taylor decisions. And this is a guy who has been handed the keys to like the Joe Montana of his age. And you have a guy who, when the big calls are needed, he just goes wanting, right? You have the touchdown to Jamar Chase that should have been a score that wasn't, that he should have challenged, and they end up first and goal from the 1-2 yard line, something like that. And then they take 4 efforts, turnover on downs, and they give the ball back to Pittsburgh. So you go from a touchdown that should have been, they did not challenge, and it would have turned into a touchdown, to no points on the board and handing the ball back to the Steelers. Then you get the most bizarre decision to end the game where he plays for a tie by punting the ball with there was 50 seconds left, a minute, 15 seconds, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And there's a rolling clock, and instead of letting the clock roll all the way down, then punting the ball back to the Steelers to pin them in, he punts early for reasons that are entirely unclear and just hands the Steelers his 15 seconds to try and drive the field to kick a field goal and win. I mean, look, they could have still won the game, right? If Evan McPherson hits one of those field goals in overtime, then they win the game. If Minka Fitzpatrick doesn't have an unbelievable play to block a field goal, they win the game. But there are concerns with their macro sense, that offense, what's it going to look like. I'm not concerned the slightest about Joe Burrow. I think they figured that out. But the wider concerns, it's been the concerns for 3 years, is you have Zack Taylor, and what does Zack Taylor do that amplifies anyone in the building? And the only thing that I can see that he does that helps people is, one, he empowers his position coaches, which I admire, and he certainly empowers the defensive coordinator to be one of the wildest mother bleepers in the league. And that's great, because that team needs that. But outside of that, his job is to be the head coach on game days, right? Run the sideline, run the challenges, all that stuff. He's not the play caller. And if that's your job, it's like Mike McCarthy. It's like, if your job is to run the sideline and run the headset on game days, that's not challenging enough for you to ever make a mistake. Play calling is really hard. You can call the wrong play. Knowing when and when not to challenge should not be difficult. Knowing when and when not to go on 4th down should not be difficult. Knowing how to roll the clock should not be difficult. These are very low degree difficulty tasks that he just consistently, you'll have 8, 10, 14 a year where you're like, man, does Zack Taylor get it? Does he know the rules? It's like, I don't know. So look, we can get into the Bengals, but I was just so baffled by some of the just decision making from the head coach.
It seemed to me, watching it, that Pittsburgh sat in February and watched the Bengals get to the Super Bowl, and that anger just built up in that defense over 6 or 7 months, and you could see it today. So for example, Fitzpatrick had an interception, 10 tackles. Witherspoon had 6 tackles. Highsmith had 3 sacks. TJ Watt, 6 tackles, a sack, and an interception. Witherspoon had another interception as well, sorry. TJ Watt may be injured. We're not sure in terms of what's going to happen there yet, but
seems pretty clear cut. He came off the side. I mean, the video, he seemed to say, I tore my pec. And then Adam Schefter said he was indeed getting an MRI, that they believe he's torn the pec, and then he'll get the MRI. Torn pec is a wrap. You don't play in the NFL for basically 9 months if you tear your pec. So, yeah, we'll await confirmation, but that seems like the best defensive player in the league is going to be out for the season.
After week 1 as well, man, that actually sucked. I actually feel bad for him as well, because that defense wasn't fired today. But even going into, you're talking about Zack Taylor and some of the decisions that they made, Mixon had 82 yards in the day. There was no rushing touchdown for Cincinnati at all, where, I mean, the Steelers were the same, but if the Steelers can get to 23 points with that sort of stacked defense, and Mitch Trubisky doesn't play that well, only has that one touchdown pass to Najee Harris, I think that maybe shows a lot. And we've said before in the preseason about the Bengals and the direction that they have to go in. Their defense was nowhere near as dominant as Pittsburgh's. I think BJ Hill had the only sack in the game for them. So there's definitely ways that they have to improve. But I know you're not concerned about Joe Burrow. I'm not concerned about him either. There's no point in jumping to conclusions after 1 week. But do you think there's a lot of issues there in Cincinnati? And the sense is they're not going to maybe get to that stage next, or this season that they got to last year, where they maybe got through. And the AFC now, we've seen tonight, it's so stacked, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, there was always going to be a regression. They were never a juggernaut, right? They didn't just roll people last year. They kind of snuck into the playoffs and then got hot. And they were always last season. This way, it's funny with, I know that the Gridiron staff, particularly Will Gavin, has had this mad back and forth with Bengals fans throughout the week, acting as though they just crush people, right? And they just KC'd their way through the entire league over the span of 17 weeks. They were always a game plan team last year. So they had a game plan against the Niners last year, both sides of the ball, outstanding game plan, and just ripped them apart. That second half against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They got toasted in the first half of that game, right? Then they deploy the drop 8 coverage in the second half. It breaks Patrick Mahomes' brains, and they're off to the Super Bowl. So they were always that kind of team. They were always boom and bust week to week, and their design of their systems are pretty boom or bust. They were not a heavy sack team last year. They were a heavy pressure team, and they forced a bunch of turnovers. On offense, as we've addressed throughout the start of the season, it was so down the field heavy. 11% of the offense was go balls from Joe Burrow. That was not sustainable at the rate he was hitting it at. So they had to adjust and adapt over the course of the season. And something that I wrote about last week was Burrow just was not a very good player against the blitz 2 years ago, right? Then last season, he just destroyed the blitz. I mean, annihilated, best in the league versus the blitz. And if you can contain the blitz package, it makes life incredibly easy for a quarterback. It is the ultimate force multiplier because it just so limits the defensive menu to vanilla looks. And they're vanilla for a reason, because the good guys break them too, right? So if you become a quarterback, Rodgers, Brady, all those guys who just destroys the blitz, that's how you break a defense over its knee, because they cannot really disguise anything anymore unless they're really, really creative on the back end, and most defenses aren't. So what we knew was going to happen was defenses were going to back up, retreat, take away the deep ball, and they know they have to play bland. So what do? You keep everything in front of you and just say, if we're going to be bland, we'll just give him space and say, can you drive 14 plays over and over again? Can you have 6 drives of 10 plus plays? And that's really, really hard. And that's what happened to him today. He gets frustrated. He wants to take deep shots. And that first half performance, it was so evident that he was wanting to gun down the field, right? The Steelers are backing off, playing deep. Nothing behind us. Deepest man. And he just got pissed off and he would just lob it deep. And there was, what was it in the end? 5 turnovers. So that is something that was always going to have to be addressed. If anything, for the Bengals, if I'm being honest with you, I think this is helpful for them long term, because I think it forces an immediate understanding in the building. The coaching staff will have known in the offseason, we have to readdress the offense. The run game last year was embarrassing schematically and wasn't that productive. So they probably worked on that in the offseason. They will have known they had to change the design of the passing game because of how defenses adjusted to them last year. And when you got young guys as good as Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is walking around with a cigar and a fur coat saying, I'm Joe Montana, and Jamar Chase is walking around with a cigar and a fur coat saying, I'm Randy Moss, the temptation is to say, fuck it, man. Let's just go throw it over the top of those guys. How deep can they get, right? So having that kind of embarrassing first half performance, I think will settle them down and say, man, we like to win football games. And throwing to Jamar Chase underneath, that's not a bad thing, man. He's still one of the best in the league at catching the ball after making yards after the catch. Go look at what Justin Jefferson did today. It was not throwing over the top of the defense. It was catching the ball and then running with it. So I do think long term, they needed a kind of shake everyone together week. And I thought that they would kind of be a bit bitty for 4 or 5 weeks where they were between these two worlds of last season to this season. And I actually think getting that out the way and just taking a big clubbing to the side of the face week 1 will force them into having to make the changes needed more so with the players, I think, than the coaching staff. We haven't seen the film or anything yet. It's not out yet, and I will dig through that. But that is my kind of initial general impression for the Bengals.
Yeah, I was even looking at it the overall point, and I almost forgot how bad that first half was, because in the second quarter, social media was popping off about Burrow, and it was just nuts, man. Yes, so Steelers defense: 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, 1 fumble recovered, 1 touchdown, 1 blocked extra point. There could be a case if that keeps happening over the next few weeks. You could call it the best defense in football, but look, that's awful for Watt, man. I know you mentioned it. You must have been pulling your hair out. Not that you need to, because you've got loads of it, man. You must have been pulling your hair out at that decision in overtime to punt whenever that clock was running down, because that was just insane, man. Seriously, like, what the hell are they at?
Insane, and costing yourself the game, essentially. Your job as the head coach is obviously to never get in the way of winning the game. You might not be the reason you win the game. I love Brandon Staley as much as anyone, but there are an awful lot of Chargers games they win where it's got nothing to do with the staff and they have this alien at quarterback, right? But at least Brandon Staley doesn't get in the way of the team winning. And Zack Taylor, for me, too often gets in the way of his team winning. And that's one of the clearest examples of that. Having said that, we should touch on the Steelers quickly because, man, yes, they win the game. And it takes Minka Fitzpatrick making a freak play, and it takes the freak occurrence of multiple missed kicks, right? That just doesn't typically happen in the NFL on a week-to-week basis, at least not with a good kicker, which is what we think Evan McPherson is. To only, how many points did they end up with in the end? 23, 21? I can't remember off the top of my head.
23-20.
23-20. 5 turnovers, 23 points. And one of them was a pick 6. So you do the maths. I'm not quick enough to do it off the top of my head. How many did the offense end up scoring then? You can figure out for me, mate. Was it 16?
Well, Mitchell Trubisky only had 1 touchdown to Najee Harris, and my understanding was there was no, as I click here, there was no rush touchdown at all. So it was literally 1 touchdown to Najee Harris, and I think there was 3 field goals, so 16. So yeah, there was 16 points. Well done. You are better at maths than me. You should be.
And Najee Harris also picked up a gruesome looking injury. I don't know if you saw that. He bent his leg in a horrific looking way. I mean, if they lose, they've built this offense, which is basically, how do we hide our quarterback? It's this bullshit Matt Canada offense, which is gross to watch. Motion, shift, motion, shift, run the ball. It's disgusting. And that's why they can't move the ball, because they run this vile offense and they're reliant on the running back. And now the running back is injured. Mitch Trubisky was brutal for most of the game. He had that one unbelievable play in overtime, which actually did win the game for them. So you have to, at least give him that part of credit. But even watching it, I'm like, man, they cannot move the ball on offense with outrageous field position, right? 5 turnovers, outrageous field position. They can't move the ball. And even me, the guy who's being like, man, Kenny Pickett, I'm not so sure on him. I don't know. I don't even know if he can play. I'm watching like, is this really the best they can do? Is it not worth saying bleep it and just throwing Kenny Pickett out there?
Well, this is what I love about living outside of the US on a game day, and it's like the first game day for 7 months. I love it whenever I've got like Ian Rappaport or someone in auto tweets, and it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and it starts coming through. I could have sworn one of the tweets I seen this morning was that, as it stands, Tomlin is expecting to play Trubisky all season long as a starter. But I know he's going to say that, and it's all bluff.
No, Jay Glazer, Fox Sports, he said Jay Glazer does not miss. All right. It doesn't miss. Real G's, Michael, move in silence like lasagna. Jay Glazer don't talk unless it's Fox Sunday kickoff. He don't tweet. He don't do nothing. And he comes in and he is right 95% of the time. And Mike Tomlin is the kind of person who, yes, is one of those guys who fully believes everything he believes until he changes his mind, right? He's like, I am 100% until I change it. I'm 100% the other thing. I believe him, man, because as I've told you, Kenny Pickett, I don't think he can play. So I would not be stunned if Mike Tomlin was like, yeah, I'm playing this guy all season. And it is fair to say, Mitch Trubisky, it's a new team, new offense. The offense is gross. It's going to take them some time to figure out too. So teething pain is totally understandable. And that was probably, and we can move on to another game if you want, the standout takeaway from week one in general, right, is just the amount of rust on these offenses, all these guys being rested, the limited practice time. It is so hard to develop an offensive line. And if you go through the number of linemen who have changed over this year, particularly when you go through the injury report from this week, it is an unusual number of new starting linemen. And that's the most difficult position to find any cohesion on. The rust was just unbearable. And we saw this last year too. I know we'll talk about the Packers. They were awful against the Saints in week one last year, right? It was just embarrassing. They couldn't move the ball at all. Same thing happens to them today in Minnesota against a better team, even that Saints team was on both sides of the ball. So this is going to happen, week one. Incredibly exciting, but anyone who's trying to extrapolate too much outside of the Bills are going to wreck the world. I'm not so sure there's much else to take from that other than Justin Herbert's great. We knew that. The Bills are going to wreck the world. We knew that.
Give me a Bills Herbert AFC Championship game stat. 20 weeks away. Mm-hmm. I can't even count down the season already.
4 days until Mahomes Herbert.
Man, I think we have to do this live in Thursday night or something.
Oh, yes.
Genuinely before the game. Let's talk about that Vikings-Packers game. I was producing a 49ers thing and doing this at the same time, but I caught a lot of it. One thing I will say while we're doing this, folks, if you're listening to the podcast, do check out the link for Beer 52 as we enjoy our cervezas for a free case, including postage. It is really, really nice, I could definitely get used to this VIP lifestyle, Ollie. I had the opportunity and I guess the pleasure of speaking to the head coach of the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, and God, it must have been a couple of months ago. And I have to say, at the time, I wasn't sure how exactly the Vikings were going to take that step up to compete with Green Bay in the NFC North. Now, look, I know there's a lot of issues in Green Bay, so we can't talk too much about the Vikings here tonight, but Kirk Cousins, average enough in the sense of he has 277 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, 184 yards in the day, an average of 20.4. But Ollie, Aaron Rodgers, while he had 195 yards, that man looked like... It's a bit like whenever I get a new pair of glasses, but I can't see properly, and I get frustrated. He looked like a man that was just really, really frustrated. And look, Jordan Love came in as well. So it's just... what a day for the Packers fans, because I think a lot of, me and you both in our viral season prediction post the other day have them to win the NFC North.
Yeah.
There's good things coming out of Minnesota, and that sort of that hybrid or that Rams offense of Phillips and O'Connell now have in to an extent it's working for them so far. It's going to be intriguing to see what happens over the next few weeks.
That offense, super exciting. I did my 22 crazy-ass predictions before the start of the season earlier this week, and one of the big ones was that the Vikings would, one, make the playoffs, and two, push the Packers really close to the North. I think the Packers take it by a game in the end, but I think it goes down to the final 2 weeks of the season. And the big thing was just that offense was pretty good last year numerically, but it was really mundane and predictable. And I thought Kevin O'Connell, who I don't think is necessarily a whiz kid. I think he's clever and he is deploying some of the best tactics and kind of the greatest hits from around the league as opposed to devising anything kind of innovative himself. Though there was some really cool stuff there. They put Justin Jefferson in the backfield, which is unusual. 3-way go RPO, Michael. Michael loves when I discuss RPOs. They had a 3-way go RPO from the pistol, Michael, with Justin Jefferson in the backfield. I almost fell off my chair. I was very, very excited. I honestly think that some really cool stuff from O'Connell in that game, exactly what I wanted to see, which was just, can he crank it up 4-5%? We're talking tiny fractions here of just taking the stuff Kirk Cousins does well, which was ID'd pretty clearly last season because he played very well last season, but there were clear patterns where he does this well, does this poorly. Can he shield and hide some of the stuff he does poorly? Can he crank up some of the stuff he does well? Simple things like moving Jefferson around the formation. Really basic stuff, right? He's the most dangerous guy in the field. The defense has to tilt his way. Really simple stuff. They did that today. But honestly, more so than the Vikings, that was just such a rough outing for the Packers. So much drop zone. Not having Jair Alexander travel with Jefferson. Just a bizarre decision, right? It makes sense to me. I'm all for coaches coming up with a game plan. These guys spend 6 months in caves trying to figure out how do we slow down Justin Jefferson. Okay, you want to play zone coverage, totally understandable, makes a ton of sense. Keep everything in front of us. We do not believe Kirk Cousins can rip the ball over the top of our heads, and we think he'll make a mistake. Same thing as we discussed with Joe Burrow, right? Really understandable game plan. When you come out like that, and then you wind up with Zadarius Smith, your pass rusher, stood over the top of Justin Jefferson, and he cooks you for 20 yards, you all have to turn around the sideline going, you know that thing we spent 6 months building? It's bullshit. It doesn't work. We have Jair Alexander. Should we try, just for a drive or two, having Jair Alexander travel and cover Justin Jefferson? Good idea, lads. Let's give that a go. That should be the response. And instead, they stuck to the game plan that was just poor, and they got ripped apart. I mean, they were much better in the second half, fortunately, but there were so many issues in that first half, which is a concern. I do think, honestly, that the Packers will be fine. I don't know, what was your general thoughts in terms of let's do the Rodgers discussion then. That's the defense covered off. The Rodgers, it's going to be the big story. I did not think it would take him 10 minutes. I thought he could hang on for maybe 2 weeks before he took it. I thought the Odell Beckham signing would be the day, wherever Odell winds up, probably in LA, would be the day he took his first passive-aggressive shot at people. Instead, it took him 8 minutes, and he blew his lid.
That was literally my next discussion point or question about Aaron Rodgers. First off, I think there's a number of different factors. That first half, they went. I had to look back. They were 17-0 down at halftime, and the first half possessions, the first one punt, downs, punt, interception, half. I mean, that's a hell of a half for Aaron Rodgers. I was surprised how quickly he got frustrated, and not just that, but I was surprised at the manner he got frustrated. He wasn't squaring up to someone like I seen Brian Dable get up to Daniel Jones, and it worked for them, and they ended up with the Giants. But it was almost like he wasn't getting his own way, and I think he spoke to the Fox analyst on the sideline and mentioned that Davante Adams was his safety net. Now, if I'm a Packers fan and somebody describes Davante Adams, the star wide receiver that was there over the last few years, as Aaron Rodgers, who just got a massive payday, as his safety net, I mean, a guy on that much money needs to be throwing the ball to anybody. I think the whole concept of maybe saying that you've got AJ Dillon, Romeo Doubs, Tunyon, Watson there, and maybe they're not experienced enough, some of them, I think that's complete rubbish, and he needs to find a way to make it work. I mean, it's not just him, but obviously the OC, the team needs to find a way to build it around him, and that might take time. But my thought process is, how long is Aaron Rodgers prepared to give it? Is he prepared? I mean, look, the NFC in comparison to the AFC it's not great, Ollie, is it? Let's be very honest.
No, it's not. The thing I'll say, look, Rodgers, they had 12 yards to wide receivers in the first half, right? Justin Jefferson had more than that on his first grab of the day. It was bad. But having said that, I mean, some of it is skewed by the Rodgers being frustrated thing will get massive play, understandably so, because he's not a get-in-your-face guy. He's a moper. He's a brooder. He's passive-aggressive. That's what he does. He actually showed way more emotion than he normally does. Usually he sits there brooding on the sidelines and then says something shitty about a player in the locker room, right? Or it doesn't even say about the play. Even that would be too direct. He just infers that things were bad to make everyone else feel terrible about themselves for the next week. For him to actually show frustration, I thought was some kind of emotional growth from the man. I was like, okay, at least he's letting people know how he feels. Which was kind of him. I don't know what people expect a Hall of Famer whose legacy is on the line week to week, essentially now, because we don't know when he's going to retire. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 3 years. When he hits a deep shot to Christian Watson in stride, who was brought there to be the deep threat, and the guy drops it, right? That is not rookie stuff. It's not like, oh, well, he's a rookie, he drops it. A rookie stuff is, hey, we're running a deep option route. He read the leverage the wrong way, goes the wrong way. Oh, he doesn't really understand the timing of routes. In college, it's 3, but 3 can be 4 because there's not really timing in college. In the NFL, it's 3 and you best be there. It's 3 with a hitch, you best be there. You best hit your landmarks. That's rookie stuff. Rookie stuff, not understanding the hand signal when you make a check. Misreading the RPO. We saw that in the Giants game where they blew the screen where the guy, it was with Rodgers actually in the Packers game, they blew the screen because the guy didn't turn his head around in time to find the screen. That's rookie stuff. Just dropping the ball 40 yards down the field, that's just talent. That's not rookie stuff. So I don't know. I've said this throughout the offseason, man. They are going to get into situations where it's third and medium and they just need a dude. And they lack a dude. And I think they will be fine for the regular season. That Vikings team, like I said, I think is pretty good. I think they'll run the hell out of the ball for most of the season. I think the tight ends are pretty good. And once the offensive line is healthy, remember, they didn't have Bakhtiari, they didn't have Jenkins today. The 2 starting tackles didn't play, and that's 2 of the best tackles in the league. So it's a pretty major loss for an offense. I think over the course of the season, like last year, they were terrible in week 1. Those guys figure it out over the course of the season. They'll be fine. But this is, to me, the thing we all have to keep in our minds when they become good and they're 8th in the league, and then they're 6th in the league, and then they're 5th in the league. remember this when we get to week 17, week 18 into the postseason, is when it is third and go and nut crunch time, they don't have the guys on the perimeter, and it's just that simple. And Aaron Rodgers can be as good as he wants. You ain't making up for not having Jefferson, Adams, AJ Brown on third and medium.
I can't wait to see down the stretch and see what happens. He threw his first interception against an NFC North opponent for the first time since 2019 today. They've got the Bears next week, the Bucks the week after, the Pats, and then the Giants over the next few weeks. So it's going to be intriguing to see the run that they could go on in relation to how the Vikings could get on as well in the NFC North. I know we've got Sunday Night Football coming up. What time is it start at, Ollie? 15 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
We've got time. I'll tell you what, do you want to give one more sort of element today in terms of what impressed you? For me, it was Dotson with the Commanders.
Oh my God.
I got a load of crap online for picking the Commanders on Friday night, and I like the way the Jaguars are going. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot to improve there, but you can see that they're quite shook from last year, and in terms of Urban Meyer, it's going to take Doug Peterson time. Trevor Lawrence, there was a few mistakes today. Carson Wentz is about as trustworthy as a car that's broke down about 15 times, but he got it done today. I know I think he had 2 interceptions. But
yeah,
he got over the line on it today.
We were in the middle. I write these columns every year. It's called the Wentz inning. I always go through the Wentz innings. It's one of my favorite pastimes. We were very glad. Today was a solid 7 on the Wentz inning Richter scale. Where he played really well to open the game. When Carson Wentz steps into a throw, as has always been the way, he looks like Dan Marino, right? Anything else, pre-snap communication, having to create on the fly, reading the game out, awful. That's why he's Carson Wentz. When that guy steps into a throw in a clean pocket, unbelievable. And they've given him these guys on the perimeter, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. These are just margin of error guys, right? They just make the margin of error so broad for him because they're so special. The Jahan Dotson touchdown, the out and up, is just a thing of beauty. Unbelievable stuff from him. The route, and then obviously be able to track and find it. But then we still got Carson doing Carson things, throwing an interception on a screen, throwing an interception the drive before, because the guy just cannot help himself, cannot get out of his own way. And he was fortunate he was playing the Jags because, like you, I think they're going in the right direction. Still believe in Trevor Lawrence. I like the Doug Peterson fit with him. But that first half, they were, and particularly the first quarter, it's like they were playing in a different league. It's like they didn't know what sport they were turning up to playing. It was unbelievable. So the only thing they really have to hang their hat off coming out of this, because Lawrence had the awful interception to end the game, Trayvon Walk would be the thing. So that guy is a dude. Going back to who's got dudes, who's not. He has made the freakiest play of the season so far. I know TJ Watt had a couple, but the interception off the screen is mad when you look back at it, where he has his arms to where his feet are, right? Because the guy's a tree. It looks photoshopped. It looks like Stretch Armstrong or something. It's insane. The guy's 6'7" with the biggest arms in the NFL, and he uses them. So that would be the positives for them. I wouldn't get too hyped up about Carson Wentz right now. He had an unbelievable half. He had 3 awful drives. Then he had an unbelievable throw to end the game. And that right there, my friends, is the full Carson Wentz experience.
There's the title for this podcast, the full Carson Wentz experience. When Walker made that play, I thought they're going to go win this game. And then I realized they're not. It's the Jaguars. They still find a win. Right. If you're listening to this podcast, check out the Beer 52 link in the link below. If you order, all you have to do is pay your postage. You get a free case of beer. We got our cases of beer. There's some snacks as well. Really, really good. And I guess for the podcast segment of this show, Ollie, thank you very much for your time, man. I know we'll probably chat a good bit during the week about week 1 and stuff, yeah?
Yes, I'll be speaking to you in the week.
Gridiron show coming up on Monday evening, folks, as well. Thanks for listening. Ollie, Sunday Night Football.
Yes.
Do you like that? Just that pure swish in the Sunday Night Football,
Perfect.
The whole thing going here. Now I know, Ollie, you're very high up on this Cowboys team, and you're very, very high up on the certain elements of it. I will put this to you tonight. The offensive line for the Bucs for me is interesting because Ali Marpez's not there anymore. Ryan Jensen's not there anymore. He's not there. Alex Kappa's gone. I know you still have Tristan Wirfs. You got the whole aspect of Brady retiring, having his 40 days, 40 nights Lent sort of thing, have a new head coach coming in. is Brady. Brady goes away for 10 days. I know I'm making up excuses here now, but there is a pathway for Dallas to maybe get at Tom Brady tonight. But the reality is, it's Dallas. They would need to start very sharp because it's going to go one of two ways. It could go like that, or honestly, more likely, Brady could ball out and show the whole world at 45, 46, or whatever age he is now, he's still going, and he's not going anywhere for now.
Yeah, it's the tale of the two offensive lines. Dallas is way more beat up than the Bucs is, and I think certainly down in terms of talent. I mean, you listed the names there who's left, but let's list the names who've stayed. Donovan Smith, really good left tackle. Tristan Wirfs, best right tackle in football. They bring in Shaq Mason, which is kind of a weird fit. This isn't the show to get into that. I'd have to sit with Brandon Thorne for 3 hours to detail to people about why that's a bit of an unusual play for them. But he is Brady-esque, and that's why he worked so well in New England beforehand. The New England moved on from him because he's a very specific kind of guard, and when he plays that style, he's one of the 2 or 3 best in the league. And so the Bucs steal him for a 4th-round pick and a bag of peanuts, and it's totally unfair that Tom Brady's allowed to do that. The question for them is new center, Robert Hainsey, who Brady says he loves, and then Luke Goedeke is the rookie starting at left guard. And I've spoken about this in a previous show during the week with you, but it comes down to how much Brady is willing to give up of himself, because he's a perfectionist who wants to get to the perfect play and the perfect protection, and that requires a lot of communication and information, and that's a lot to put on a rookie at guard, and it's a lot to put on a center who has not started football games. So I know they say they got tons of trust in Hainsey, and the way they do communication at Tampa is Brady does everything. It's got nothing to do with the center essentially, but the center still has to hear it and execute it, as does the left guard too. So I'm interested to see if for 1 week Brady says, look, this Dallas defense isn't that good anyway. Maybe. That they were unbelievable last year, but they rode turnover. Look, they've got 2 dominant pass rushers, and outside of that, there's no one that really terrifies you, particularly because Javon Curse isn't playing right, the safety who's really important for them. So I could see Brady saying, let's keep it really basic and simple. We don't have to push it this week. This is a long season. We're here to win championships, not week 1. And if they keep it pretty simple and it's just kind of a bit of a turgid game, that's why I see it going with Brady. Whereas for the Cowboys, that they are wholly reliant on the value of the offensive line. And losing Tyron Smith and having to move the pieces around is devastating when you're facing Vita Vea and that entire front, which is just obviously full of studs.
I could have sworn as well, and I could be wrong here this morning, I read something about Dak Prescott having a slight knock or some sort of injury, so I must double check that after this, but hopefully he's fully fit, because he may need to run a little bit tonight to get just to get out of that pocket. The last time they played, they focused too much on passing. They need to try and get a right mix of the pass game and the run game. You've got Ezekiel Elliott, you've got Pollard there. We had an argument during the week about Ezekiel Elliott. I've got a bold prediction that he's gonna have a better game. Look at running backs tonight that came back into it. Saquon Barkley, I don't know how many yards he had today, but he came back. I mean, this time last year I thought that man was done, so you never know, maybe Zeke could find some sort of level. But it's going to be an interesting game for the Cowboys offense. They need to start off the game well. They need to put a marker down and try and get points on the board first, second drives. And I feel this year, especially in the way that the season ended for the Cowboys last year, in that infamous way that they need to try and almost forget about it, completely refresh themselves and go out. The problem that you have there is Jerry Jones is there and Mike McCarthy's there, and I think you're one of your bold predictions is Mike McCarthy doesn't get past week 10, isn't it? Or do you say week 8?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly now. I think I hedged it to be like just some point in mid-season. He's an in-season firing. They're not going to be able to run the ball against that Bucs front. They don't have the players anymore. Zeke ain't that guy. That offensive line we've discussed, and that Bucs front is one of the best in the NFL. Probably 3, maybe 4th. So they're just not, and this happened to them last year. If you remember, Prescott ended up throwing the ball 60 times, and they competed in the game, and that will have to be the game plan. The issue is, again, the offensive line isn't as good this year as it was last year, and they don't have Amari Cooper this year. They don't have that extra piece to really spread the field and play pitch and catch stuff. They have to have bigger bodies on the field this year, which just really constricts what you can do on offense. You end up looking like the Rams did in the kickoff game, where you're getting big bodies in, but you have to throw the ball, and it makes your menu pretty limited unless you balancing between running the ball and throwing the ball. So I think they're in trouble. I think they're in trouble tonight. I think if they were fully healthy, it would be different. And I just checked then, as you were saying, Prescott said he felt something pop in his ankle on Thursday, but X-rays were negative. That's terrifying, man. He has to be able to move for this offense to function. It's not the same as last year where he Peyton Manninged his way down the field. He has to be able to play off script. He has to be able to go and create offense by himself, something he's not done now since he had the devastating ankle injury. He's not the guy he was when he came into the league. He's a completely different player, a player I love. But he's just a different guy because that offense doesn't have. They were so overwhelming last year. The talent was so beyond what other teams could put on the field. He now has to be the guy who makes that difference up. As the talent drops, your best player has to carry everyone. That's why you're a franchise quarterback. So he has to be more of a playmaker and a creator. And if his ankle's injured or his ankle is hurting, or even it's just in his head that he's like, oh my God, my ankle might go, that it doesn't sound like somebody wants to bounce and move around the pocket.
Waiting all day for Sunday night ankle. See what happens. Michael Gallup's not playing. You're right. Yeah, they've got more sort of limited options on the offense. You know, CD Lamb is going to have to take a massive amount of responsibility there tonight. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm presuming you're going with the Bucks. I'm actually going to go with the Cowboys for the crack. Just 3-point winners. Just so I can sit in my time zone at 4:20 a.m. and text you going, ha ha ha, Ollie.
I really think
I think it'll be like a 30-point win. Honestly,
I think something's going on with the Bucks here, where people have forgot how good they are because of the Brady situation. Because they think, oh, the retirement was weird, the 10-day break was super weird. He's been strange this offseason. Like just his interactions with the people is unusual. I don't know if you saw the video from the I think it was Friday practice when he came out. He's really bizarre. He won't talk to anyone. It's like. And that stuff can happen, right? It gets toxic in a locker room and all of a sudden the whole thing falls apart. So if something is weird there, that could be a factor over the course of the season. But I think people will be reminded tonight how athletic and good the team is. You just go down the roster and it's a who's who of Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Jamal Dean, Mike Edwards, Antoine Whitfield Jr., Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy Bunting. You're talking top 10 at their position down the line. Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks, William Golston. That's just the starters on defense. I didn't even get to the offensive line where they have some of the best players in the league. I didn't get to the wide receiver core. We have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, and Julio Jones. I mean, they just are more talented than the Cowboys. So I'm going to take them. I think it works well for them. They're fortunate that they're healthy. So I'll take the Bucks. But I love Dak so much that I never allow Dak to get blown out in my mind because I don't want Dak to be upset. So I'll
What's a blowout to you? Like more than 10 points?
14? Yeah, two scores is a blowout, I think. So I'll take the Bucks by a score. I'll just say by 3. I'll go. Let's do a 23-20. I think that they're both going to be pretty grim at moving the ball on the ground.
Time will tell. Excited to see what happens. Sunday Night Football. We've got a Monday Night Football game tomorrow night, Broncos Seahawks. There's a Gridiron show out tomorrow as well. Tomorrow evening's going to be live, I think, Ollie. It's going to be good. Maybe you can pop in and join us. And yeah, it's a stacked week, as Ollie said as well. You got that Chiefs-Chargers game on Thursday. There's content every day. It's just awesome, Ollie. And I know you've been blowing up the internet this week, and not just with the new Gridiron magazine issue 71 out now. You can get the link on our pinned tweet and Twitter, but just the content's been amazing. So it's awesome, man, and enjoy the game tonight.
You too.